Greetings. What going on with all brethren and sisters out there? Now, what's up, YouTube fam? Doing this a little bit on the late side. Had a busy day. I apologize for Friday. I was supposed to do this review, but I'm doing it now. So yes, I went to go see the Bob Marley movie Thursday, and I gotta say it was definitely a disappointment. I mean, the movie wasn't terrible. Don't get me wrong; it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't good either. If you get what I'm saying. Um, before we get into any of this about the movie, there's two things I want to say. First thing is, most of these biopic picks, we already know it's always going to be something kind of off about them. You know what I mean? I already kind of like expected. I didn't expect this movie to be like super great or super authentic. You know what I mean? But there was just a lot of shit that they could have put into this movie that they left out. And there was also a lot of things that could have just been left out that they like focused on for no reason in the movie and things like that. I'm gonna try not to spoil the movie, like I say, I mean, it's supposedly, based on a true story, which, is mostly based on true events. A lot of Bob Marley's life, we know is there's stuff in the newspaper from like when he got shot. We all got footage and stuff from, the interviews, concerts, books, all of his albums. I mean, his life story is pretty much out there. So, I mean, you can't really spoil really the story unless you just didn't know about Bob Marley's life and you want to learn about it from this movie. I'm going to tell y'all right now, you're not going to get that. I'm sorry to say to y'all. I really hate to say, but this is not one of those movies where you actually learn about his life. You actually know more. They had a couple of good parts that kind of like went into certain detail about certain things, but it's like the movie itself, y'all, it did not really, like, people who don't already know about Bob Marley, they're not going to learn anything. They're not going to learn anything new. None of the characters, none of the people in the movie were actually being introduced, things like that. So, I mean, but like I said, listen, I'm kind of babbling. Let me get back to, before we get into all that, let me kind of get back to my other thing. I said it was two things I wanted to say first. The second thing, though, this is another thing I want to say most importantly. And because I'm probably going to say this a lot throughout the video because I cannot emphasize this enough. Bruh, the actor that played Bob Marley in this movie, great fucking job. Bruh, he did his thing. That is a great actor. I mean, the Jamaican accent dialogue was authentic. Like usually when you see these movies, you got these people with these like fake Jamaican accents and it just sounds real corny and cartoonish. And yeah, man, I am Jamaican. Nah, like this one, he was speaking like some real like Jamaican patois. It's just like he was on point. I've even heard people, I guess, like complain that they couldn't understand like, some of the dialogue. And I'm like, to me, that's a good thing. That means they was really speaking that real shit. Yeah, I think they probably could have put subtitles for ones who don't understand it. Now, for those who know me, know I grew up with Rasta culture, Jamaican culture, reggae music. These things are a big part of my life and will always be. You know what I'm saying? So I understand, I can listen to some hardcore Jamaican, I can even speak a lot of hardcore Jamaican. I'm already in tune, so I can, to me, I didn't catch it. But when people start saying that, man, they had trouble understanding, like some of them like movies like Shadas and where like, they got subtitles because it'd be almost impossible for a person that doesn't already know the language, which is really just broken up English. But yeah, man, like now like looking back, I'm like, yeah, they was really speaking that real shit. Because no time in the movie did I ever question. I'd be like, man, that sounded corny. That sounded weak. Because I was there with my dad, who was a Rastaman also. And, he was there too, like criticizing the movie with me. You know what I'm saying? We both seen it at the theater, you know what I'm saying, with my nephew. And, like no time did we ever like really question the accents. So that really did hit me though. They did do a good job. But I think they did so good focusing on getting the accents and the Jamaican dialogue on point that they kind of like just blew everything else. You know what I'm saying? Because like, I don't know, man, because I don't want to be all over the place with this video because like the movie was all over the place. There was no real solid timeline. Like it didn't start from when he was like a youth and then he grew up to an adult Bob Marley and became a star. They just kind of like sort of like ran through that with some little words on the screen, you know, in 19 da da da, you know, Bob Marley was born and da 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 da. He won his first Grammy, da 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 blah 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 blah. Then the movie starts. Like then they show, it's like they just kind of skip you forward to when he's already kind of like an adult. I mean, not kind of like, but when he's already an adult and the damn near a fucking superstar, and when he's already a Rasta man, this and that, because Bob Marley did not start being Rasta. I guess, you know what, here, I'm going to go ahead and just explain a little bit about Rastafari. I don't want to make this video too long because it's late, but I did promise a review today. So I'm going to take my time and try to do this right. But I cannot do this without at least explaining some brief about Rastafari and what Rastafari is. Because that is one of the most, if not the most important aspects of Bob Marley's life. That's really what made Bob Marley, besides being a very charismatic entertainer and a very handsome, talented musician and all this and that. Besides all of that, Bob Marley was a Rastaman. Listen, when he took up Rastafari, that's what really, his image and his whole identity is what really carried him through with that. So, Rastafari is a belief system. It's a belief system that, it originated from Kingston, Jamaica. And like I said in, you know, my previous video, it's got certain influences from like sadhus, which is like the dudes from India with the long dreadlocks, and they smoke a lot of herb and stuff like that. You know, they do a lot of like yoga, meditating positions, this and that. You'll see them like standing like with their legs crossed and shit like that. A lot of these people were in the island of Jamaica. Then you got the black African slaves, and you got all these different spiritualities and this and that. This is kind of where Rastafari was it's sort of like was influenced from a lot of those type of cultures and type of traditions. But the belief about Emperor Haile Selassie, which is like the main basis of Rastafari, which is his name was Rastafari when he was born, when he was crowned king, which is he's an emperor from Ethiopia. When he was crowned king, his name was Haile Selassie. They named him Haile Selassie, which is the guy on my shirt. When you see my my little profile picture, whatever, you know, my YouTube photo, that shirt that I'm wearing, that's Emperor Haile Selassie I of Ethiopia, or Haile Selassie the First of Ethiopia. He was an emperor from Ethiopia. The Rastafarians believe, or most of them believe, or they have a base within the belief that he is either the return of Christ, you know, Jesus of Nazareth, or he's the return of God Almighty, or himself. Like he's like the incarnate of God in human flesh. Then you have like another, it's sort of like an alternative branch of like that type of belief. I don't think I'm using the right words here, y'all, but hey, listen, y'all know me, bear with me. Where you got kind of like the Buddhists, where it's like, you know, they're influenced by the existence of Haile Selassie, which makes them, you know, like trot a certain way or live a certain way, where they, you know, they got the dreadlocks, you know, they eat certain foods. They got certain rituals. They got certain ways they carry themselves, certain beliefs that they carry, things like that. Haile Selassie, who was originally born Ras Tafari, which means something like prince or like head, creator, or something like that. You know what I mean? It means prince. I forget the full exact meaning of Tafari, and I should be ashamed of my fucking self. But I do know Ras means like prince or like head or something. So Ras Tafari McKinnon, a.k.a. Haile Selassie the First of Ethiopia, the guy on my shirt, the guy that Bob Marley believed and every Rastafari believe, or that held up as the King of Kings. That's what Rastafari is. They actually showed Haile Selassie in the movie a little bit, so that was kind of interesting. It kind of blew me away. Again, you know, I'm not going to spoil it, but there was a part where, yeah, I mean, you know, it was somebody portraying Haile Selassie, because again, Bob Marley never actually met Haile Selassie, but you know, but like, I guess, you know, his son did like buy him a ring, stuff like that. You know, he I mean, just, you know, he always bigged up His Majesty's name and stuff like that, and his music and all this type of stuff in interviews. So, you know, they actually showed that they had somebody portraying Haile Selassie for a small part. You know, he said like a few words in the Amharic language, which is, you know, the Ethiopian language. And so, like, you know, that type of stuff was beautiful. They mentioned Nyabingi, which is a Rastafari ceremony where they, like, you know, they beat the drums and, you know, they smoke the ganja, they do certain chants, and it's usually like a heartbeat, the type of sound beat. You know what I mean? That's I'm giving y'all like a little bit of like Rastafari lessons, but I got to, y'all, because this is about Bob Marley. So, you know, that little beat, that Nyabingi, that you know, they did stuff like that. They had a little small part where he even mentioned, he said the word Nyabingi, which was, you know, like I said, you know, I was proud that they at least did that, because I wasn't expecting them to really go full much into the Rasta thing. But then again, when you think about it, how can you not if you're talking about Bob Marley? Because that's what really kind of that's what really influenced him to really strive to be as big as he was. You know what I mean? So, and, you know, that's just the truth, y'all. So the Rastafari thing, you know, I had to kind of mention that. It's so much more that goes into that, man. I'm going to have to do a whole video about that one day, y'all. But you know, the reason I had to mention that, not only just because it's Bob Marley, but because it also has a lot to do with, you know, the life story and the stuff that they try to put into the movie. Like there's a brethren, a Rasta elder named Mortimer Plano. Mortimer is really Mortimer, which is Mortier. No, Mortimer, Mortimer, and then Plano, Planno. But you know, some people, they just say Martimo with an O instead of, you know, the ER and stuff. But he's like one of the old school Rastafarian people that actually taught Bob Marley. He's the one that got him into the Rastafari thing, along with Rita Marley, which is Bob Marley's wife, you know. So, you know, they did mention that in the movie, but they never actually mentioned his name. They never actually, like, introduced Mortimer Plano. They never said, like, yes, look, this is who this guy is, and this is like the significance he had in Bob Marley's life. They just kind of showed him kind of being like an elder, but they never mentioned his name, never really introduced him. Just like another brother named, his name was Coxstone Dodd. Yes, I know it sounds like a funny word, you know, but that's the name, Coxstone Dodd, he was like a rude boy. To anybody watch any documentaries, know anything about Bob Marley, he was like, you know, he used to run a studio called Studio One, where it's like a lot of the, like some of the original reggae artists who wanted to become anybody. They was like the Motown of Jamaica, basically. And this dude was like, you know, he was a rude boy. You know what I'm saying? He carried his gun. He was like the type of dude that's like, look, bro, he would go to the radio stations and say, look, you're going to play this band, you're going to play my group, or nigga, we gonna fuck you up type shit. You know what I'm saying? We are gonna put a bullet through your bum clot. Like, he was one of them type of brethren, like one of them type of rude boy shotters from back in the day that owned a little studio and like controlled all the little music locally. So when Bob Marley was a little kid, a little youth, before he got in the Rasta, he was going to like Coxstone or Dodd. They did show him in the movie a little bit, but they only showed a small glimpse, and he wasn't even really part of the like movie. Really, he was more like one of Bob Marley's little flashbacks, because like he would every now and then he would do a flashback when he was a kid, and that's how they would try to like tell the stories of before. Because honestly, that's what most people wanted to see. They want to see before Bob Marley became a star, you know, before he became famous, before he became Rastafari and all this stuff. Because he was doing music before. If y'all see, there's old like footages of him, you know, he had short hair. He used to like wear a little bow tie. He was like a little like kid damn near doing like doo-wop and shit like that. And right along with Bunny Wailer and his brother Peter Tosh. And they wasn't Rastas. They was just regular dudes. And they later on, they was already basically musicians. They was already like doing music and shit, and then got in a Rasta, which is rare. You know, usually, you know what I'm saying? You know, like, especially like for back in that time. So he was like one of the first to like, you know, like transitions, you know, like one of the first musicians to already be established as a musician and an artist. And then later on, like take up Rastafari as an image and a lifestyle. And also put it like within his music. You can hear the sound of the music change when you know, once they took up Rastafari. Bunny Wailer and Peter Tosh, one of the which is like the original Wailers. That was the group: Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, Bunny Wailer. They were called the Wailers. They only mentioned Bunny Wailer and Peter Tosh maybe one time, and it was during like an argument with Bob and Rita Marley, which, like, y'all know about all the affairs and all the kids that Bob Marley had outside of his marriage with, Rita. It's like they barely kind of mentioned that. It's like they had one big argument. Like, no, I ain't gonna say big. They had one small argument in the movie. Spoiler alert. They had one small like argument where they was, getting like some inside drama on what was going on in their personal life. And they just kind of like quickly kind of like ran through like everything, like with the Peter Tosh and Bunny Wailer, what about all the girlfriends you got, and then like the next scene everything was okay again, and it was just so much shit in the movie, y'all. I can't, like I said, I don't even have much time. I know this video is gonna be long because I don't have much time to even get on everything that, without explaining in like detail just how like ridiculous like some of this shit was. Like the song that Bob Marley wrote, to Turn Your Lights Down Low. We all know that was written for a woman named Cindy Breakspear, who was a model. She was Jamaica's, she was Miss Jamaica and a Miss World one time at like them little little fucking pageants or whatever the fuck. And she's also the mother of Damian Marley, Damian Jr. Gong. Y'all know, who got an album with Nas. He got the, Welcome to Jam Rock. Probably one of the most popular within the music right now, besides Ziggy, who was like the main person behind this movie. And like, he wrote a song called Turn Your Lights Down Low. And in the movie, he's like singing a song to Rita. And you can clearly see like the frustration on her face. And you can almost feel like this is the part of the movie where they're about to bring up his, like little like love affairs that he had with other women and things like that. And his outside kids that he had outside of the relationship. And you can see like the angry look on her face while he's singing this song. And then all of a sudden, they just like skip right over it and they just go talking about something else. It's weird. It was just a lot of shit like that. It's almost like they purposely cut a lot of shit out of the movie in the final cut or something. So it was, but like I said, they barely mentioned Peter Tosh, Bunny Wailer. They did show Mortimer Plano within the thing, which is like one of the Rasta elders that actually taught Bob Marley about Rasta in his early years. They barely kind of showed a little bit of that, and it's like in some of his flashbacks. Muta Baruka, who is a very famous dub poet and also runs a very successful radio station on Irie FM, which is in Jamaica. It's called The Cutting Edge and the Razor Stone, program. He played a small little cameo in the movie, never really said anything. Just stuff like that, you know what I'm saying? As far as like Bob Marley's death, everybody knows, he died of cancer supposedly, but it's a lot of conspiracy about the government and the CIA, but they barely got on that. The dude that shot him in real life, he was shot. In the movie, they made it seem like he came back to ask Bob for like forgiveness, and Bob's like, yeah, man, it's all about peace and love. And it's just, they had a lot of fucking corny parts in there. So y'all, I'm not going to hate on the movie just because, it's Ziggy Marley and them, even though, I got my feelings about them sometime. But, I would go see the movie just because it's Bob Marley. The acting, it's pretty entertaining for the most part. Just, just to see people portraying Bob, and like the music, the soundtrack, the sounds that they did like in the movie, like when they're like the little studio session scenes where they're like, yo man, I play the bass right there, and then they're like creating the music. I love them scenes in these type of movies. Yo, they got some of the best scenes like that in this movie though. So as far as like the music, it more or less focused on his career as a reggae star, more or less, and then it showed a little bit of drama behind the scenes, but that was it. And then the rest was just a bunch of filler parts, just kind of showing like this guy, like portraying that guy, just a bunch of just throwing in a bunch of little characters that they barely even introduced or barely really told them what their role in Bob Marley's life was. You just had to kind of guess. Like I said, if you don't already know about Bob Marley, you're not going to really understand a lot of the characters and the dialogue of what's going on. It's just, man, like they just threw a bunch of shit together, y'all. It was really like just one of them type of, It's just one of them type of movies. I would say like this. This is something I really been thinking of. It's just like it's another cheap Bob Marley product. What I mean by that, like how you got Bob Marley t-shirts, you got the Bob Marley shoes, you got some Bob Marley gloves. You go to the little ghetto fucking corner store, you see like the Bob Marley swishers, the Bob Marley hat, you got a Bob Marley lighter. They probably got a fucking Bob Marley pack of cigarettes and Bob Marley soda, and it's just a bunch of little cheap products that Bob Marley would never even fucking condone himself in. And all these little cheap products with Bob Marley's face and Bob Marley's name just to sell a Bob Marley product. This movie was no different. This was just like them Bob Marley swishers you buy at the fucking corner store. This was just the quick little Bob Marley movie that you get. You know what I'm saying? Co-signed by Ziggy Marley, Bob Marley's son himself. So they try to make it seem like it was more authentic than it was. I mean, listen, I'm not going to say don't see the movie. Don't take my word for it. Listen, one of y'all might see it and think it's the greatest ever. But again, to the ones that like me that know about Bob Marley and that know his music and just grew up just knowing about Bob Marley being a big part of my life. And seeing this was just a very fucking disappointment. And for the ones that don't know much about Bob Marley and that want to learn more about Bob Marley, or that are like interested in getting more into Bob Marley, you're going to be disappointed as well, if not more disappointed, because you're not going to know any more about Bob Marley than you did before. You might be a little more curious about Rastafari though. So I will say that hopefully people start learning about who Haile Selassie is and knowing more about the spiritual side of his culture. And listen to some Bob Marley music. There's a lot of great documentaries. There's one he had, I forget the name, but it was like one of the most recent official documentaries of Bob Marley. Go watch that. So anybody who wants to know more about Marley, there's a lot about him. His father was a white man. I forget. I don't really have much more information about him. And I just know he wasn't in his life much. They kind of showed like a little glimpse of that in the movie again, but they didn't really go that deep into it. You know what I'm saying? Look up Peter Tosh and Bunny Wailer, which was like Bob Marley's main, like you cannot talk about Bob Marley's life without them two. Peter Tosh and Bunny Wailer, I could have sworn they would have been like big parts of the movie. They were barely even mentioned in like one little argument scene between him and Rita Marley. And so, again, y'all, that was it, man. It wasn't special. I hate to disappoint y'all. It wasn't a very fucking spectacular movie. It wasn't like the greatest masterpiece movie. It's just whatever, It was like, okay, it was entertaining watching a guy like act like Bob Marley. It had a lot of good scenes. It had a few like entertaining scenes, had a lot of little shootout scenes, things that really happened, but it was all over the place. Like I said, it's like one scene is Bob Marley's like this super holy, yeah, man, one love, peace. And then the next, he's like stomping somebody out and like running from the police in an alley. It's just they just try to throw too much together. But, I would say go see it just so you can say that you've seen it, and just, you might get it's definitely a little bit of entertaining parts, and it's a few boring parts, just a bunch of unnecessary dialogue, and it's just a mixture of all of it. It's some enjoyment, it's some non-enjoyment, good music, and then it's some boring talking. But overall, I say like through 1 out of 10, I give it maybe a 6.5 or a 7. And I'm only giving that just because it's Bob Marley. And the actor did such a great job fucking portraying. The music parts was good, and a few little Rastafari scenes where they was like kind of like going deep about Rastafari a little bit, and then they go back to some other shit. But the little few scenes was definitely good. So, y'all see for yourself. Go check it out. It's called Bob Marley, One Love. I would probably pass on maybe watching it again, but it's definitely a nice first time watch just because it's Bob Marley, and it had a lot of good scenes, some damn good acting actually, but just other than that, whatever, I could get my $12 back from the movie that I seen. But all right, y'all, that's it. That's my review. Y'all, so I'm sorry. I wish I could tell you much more amazing, spectacular things about the movie. But I gave you all I could, really, without spoiling it. Go watch a documentary. Go listen to some Bob Marley. One love, peace and blessings, man. Yes, I. Keep it Irie. Peace.